When Xenoblade X was announced to be getting a re-release, I immediately went to check the reaction of this guy in particular.
Nossa senhora! Cara, não foi anunciado o Switch 2, mas foi anunciado o Xenoblade Definitive Edition!
He would comment under this music compilation for years, expressing his love for the game and asking Nintendo to bring it to the Switch. And when the day finally happened, the payoff was not just satisfying, but emotional as well. There's loving a game, and then there's loving a game that might not ever get another chance. Xenoblade Chronicles X was exclusive to the Wii U, which was not only a system that didn't sell well, but also catered more to younger players rather than hardcore fans, so the game didn't exactly have the largest player count. It didn't help at the time the future of the series was still uncertain, yet despite all of that, developers Monolith put their absolute everything into this game, and Xenoblade X was easily the most technically impressive title on the Wii U. There was concern it would have been difficult to port over to new hardware due to its scale, but by some miracle the Switch version somehow looks better than the original. There's still occasional frame rate drops that are to be expected from Switch titles, but this is one of the few where I'd argue it's understandable. Planet Mira is the best open world I've had the pleasure of exploring, with the environments looking impossibly beautiful without a single load screen in sight. Traversing using your giant mech is cool and all, but even the standard player movement is amazing. So much so, it's easy to lose track of your objective and start running aimlessly through this massive alien world. After making just a little progress in the story, you can venture pretty much anywhere. If you want to swim across the ocean to the next continent and march right into the last area of the game, go for it. This is even encouraged because there's actually things to do there. Having enemies and quests of varying levels across the entire world makes it feel like there's always something to do no matter where you are. The highlight of Mira are its inhabitants, which truly make the planet feel alive. One moment you'll think, aw, what a cute little guy, and then the next will have you wondering if staying back on Earth wasn't such a bad option. Some stay hidden until you're right next to them, and I won't lie, I admit a good amount of these have genuinely scared me. Most of the game is spent evading the wildlife, and it's hard not to feel at least a little insignificant compared to the colossal size of some of these creatures. Let's see. He's supposed to be around here, but I don't see him. Which can only mean... Oh no! Help, 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 help! Elma, help! Oh my god! When it comes to fighting these guys, you have approximately 4 quadrillion options of doing so, trust me I did the math. If you like deep customization in your RPG combat, this is some of the most as well as best the genre has to offer. At first, weapons and skills are assigned to certain classes, but using them enough lets your avatar character freely mix and match them with other classes. Speaking of which, the appearance of said avatars left to the player, allowing you to recreate fan-favorite Xenoblade characters such as Malos, Pyra, and Sephiroth. Like the first game, when engaging in combat, characters on your team can have up to 8 arts at a time, which have bonus effects when used under certain conditions. But new to X are secondary cooldowns. These take longer than usual to activate, but grant even stronger effects if you're willing to be extra patient. Then soul voices are the primary source of healing granted for using an art the same color as your party calls out. This creates a unique combat loop as not only is healing merged with actions that attack or apply a status effect, it causes you to think twice before using up all your fancy moves in case a soul voice prompt shows up. Quick Cooldown is an ability new to Definitive Edition, allowing you to use an art on cooldown at the cost of this meter. This helps the early game immensely as switching around classes usually cuts your moveset in half before you unlock the rest. So being able to use the arts you do have at a more rapid rate makes this process not a complete snooze fest. But what does this have to do with the skills? Skills are hyped up for the entire game, and it takes a good while to earn the ability to pilot them. But once you finally obtain your license and realize the significantly increased mobility you now have, it's the best feeling ever. Then you engage in combat, and it's the worst feeling ever. For what's supposed to be one of the defining moments of the game, the skill they hand you at first is pathetic! Even after upgrading the model and equipment, scale combat leaves a lot to be desired. Arts take very long to recharge, and the damage output from scales can feel inconsistent, as does their survivability. Sometimes they can hold their own just fine, but then they'll get torn apart by some random bugs 10 levels below me. It just doesn't make sense. If you're willing to invest in them, scale combat capabilities aren't too bad, but this is a terrible first impression that'll potentially demotivate players from using them, especially if they've taken Overdrive 101. It takes some learning, but Overdrive allows you to get up to some shenanigans from the moment you unlock it. Not only does it boost your combat abilities like crazy, it's possible to permanently extend it and even have it immediately ready for the next battle. And after learning how to use it efficiently, it becomes a wrap for those who stand against your path. Unfortunately, using Overdrive activates music that overrides nearly every other battle theme, which can not only get real repetitive real fast, but kills the mood for some of the more intense boss fights. And it's kinda really stupid that you can disable the Overdrive theme in Xenoblade 2 of all games. They acknowledge players might want to listen to the rest of the game's soundtrack, but since then they've released 3 titles, with all of them missing the feature to disable action-specific music. Similarly, Flying with a Scale also replaces the area music with its own track, and the fact they give you 3 variations of the song, but not an option to turn it off outright, makes it feel like it's almost intentional at this point. The vocal tracks are also hit or miss, with some being obnoxiously loud and others containing some of the most hilarious lyrics to ever bless a video game.
The example they gave me was like typical American commercial rap. Okay, just foolishness. So I wrote a song in like 2 hours and recorded. They're like, cool. Is anyone there? I need a bigger gun.
The lyrics lean into its so bad it's good territory, to the point it's become a part of Xenoblade X's identity. The way I'm describing it makes it seem like the music is terrible, but let it be known, the other 90% of the soundtrack is very, very good. I'm no musical expert, but what I do know is that the soundtrack fits every emotion and atmosphere perfectly, paired with memorable compositions and motifs, making them even more enjoyable to listen to. From exotic to represent the environments of Mira, and electronic to represent the giant robots and stuff. But I think where the music truly shines are the area themes. Between all the action and adventure, sometimes I'll stop, just momentarily, and admire the scenery complemented by the wonderful soundtrack. It really is beautiful, and it's made me think, maybe this alien planet isn't so bad. Sorry, I would continue to express my love for the soundtrack if it wasn't for the loudest song I've heard in my life! Dude, oh my, what is happening? How did I get here? I used to think Xenoblade X had the weakest story in the series, but after playing through the game again, I still think Xenoblade X has the weakest story in the series. It has memorable moments for sure, but not a lot exactly happens. And if it does, there's a chance it doesn't contribute to the main narrative. For example, Chapter 6 is all about this new enemy type called Tainted. The party ends up getting cornered by a bunch of them until they're saved by a colossal creature with a pretty significant name. Sounds like a pretty interesting setup, right? Well, too bad, because both of these are never mentioned again outside of minor reappearances in side quests. The motivations for the villains are quite interesting, but they're tied to the most boring, nothing personalities imaginable. Whenever they show up, I completely drown out their generic bad guy monologue and focus more on what the main characters had to say instead. On the topic of main characters, I should probably bring up the visual overhauls they received. There's no denying the character models from the original looked a bit off. I was admittedly fond of them resembling how characters looked in Xenosaga, but it was clear something had to change. The updated designs strike a nice balance between looking closer to the rest of the series cast, while still retaining a more realistic feel similar to the original. It reminds me of how after Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, Skyward Sword found a middle ground for fans of both styles, and I wouldn't mind this being the look Xenoblade sticks with moving forward. Back to the characters themselves, there's a lot of party members in this one. They might not have the most depth the series has to offer, but they're certainly the most diverse in terms of personalities, motivations. Some of them are straight up bad people. And I actually appreciate how the occasional party member you'll meet can come off as unlikable, as not only does it feel more believable, but also because it's more satisfying to see them grow and develop. So with that said, I enjoy pretty much all of the main cast. And then there's Tatsu, always causing trouble, always up to mischief, always up to no good. I don't trust him, and neither should you. A majority of the playable characters are surprisingly optional, which is why investing in the side content is extremely worth it. Missions are divided into different categories, so before starting them you can tell if it's going to be a basic find item or kill monster quest, or something more substantial. You can unlock new arts, gear, insanely useful features such as expanding your augment slots, or being able to change your avatar's appearance anytime you'd like, and even discover new alien races you can befriend. And that's not to mention the stories of the side quests are intriguing. The seemingly throwaway options your character is prompted with now and then can actually matter a lot. They'll range from, oh cool, the quest changes depending on what I answer, to somebody died and it's pretty much your fault. Definitive Edition adds some new side quests alongside 4 new party members, one of which was implemented so well I was shocked to learn they weren't playable in the original. That was something I was worried about with this release. Adding content to an old game isn't necessarily difficult. The hard part is making it seamless with the rest of the experience. The cutscenes in these quests feel slightly cheap, but overall everything seems to be going fine. Nothing was jarring and felt out of place. And then Van Damme has to open his mouth. Just for reference, this is what he's supposed to sound like.
Those are some big shoes to fill. You can rest assured that your folks would be proud as hell. You know that, right?
And this is what he sounds like in Definitive Edition.
Heads up! We just received an urgent request from Granada GG. It's direct from their chief engineer.
What happened? I can't imagine getting all the voice actors back for a game released nearly a decade ago is easy. Sometimes they're not available or even passed away in the case of Lau's Japanese voice actor. But I refuse to believe this was the best they could have done for Van Damme. And it doesn't stop there, because once you start the major new story content, that seamlessness I mentioned suddenly goes up in flames. Compared to the base game, characters suddenly say things they wouldn't, keywords are pronounced differently, some cutscenes are presented in a totally different art style, and others are constant flashbacks for scenes that didn't even happen an hour ago. It's painfully obvious this was not made by the original team, and the quality decrease from the rest of the game is exceedingly noticeable. The trailers advertise this new area, and I will say I enjoyed how the more you explore it, the easier the new boss fight becomes. But I didn't feel like it because all the enemies were reskins, so I just skipped to the end and hit the boss with some Overdrive shenanigans. The original storyline left a lot of big questions unanswered. Imagine what I talked about for Chapter 6, except significantly more important. The new story provides answers to these mysteries, but it doesn't feel like it was the original plan. I hate to sound even more negative, but while it started out promising, by the end of it all, the experience had lowered my opinion of the overall game, and after checking online, I'm far from the only one who thinks this way. I'm gonna confess something here. When it comes to the first Xenoblade, I actually prefer the original over Definitive Edition. And no, it's not because I'm some weirdo that hates the Xenoblade 2 art style or anything. If you're only doing the main story, the two versions don't play that differently, and in my dumb baby opinion, the game has an especially unique aesthetic and atmosphere on the Wii and 3DS. One might say it's simply nostalgia, but at the same time, I also have fond memories of Xenoblade X, and can't ever see myself going back to the Wii U version. There's just so many improvements and changes I can't believe weren't in the original. Simple actions such as changing the time and your active party members weren't accessible from the menu, instead you were required to go to specific areas to do so. You could argue this was a cute way of making the world feel more believable, but the novelty wore off quickly and having these always available saves a lot of time. The re-release also brings back the online features after the Wii U server shut down. Online shenanigans include being able to recruit other players' avatars into your party to actual real-time multiplayer, because this game wasn't busted enough with only one human player, let alone up to 4. I have no idea what is happening right now, but it's awesome. There's only 2 other things that fill me with raw gamer rage that I wish they changed. There are 2 collectible holofigures from enemies you can only fight if you have Switch Online. Not only is locking completion behind a paywall not future-proof and overall lame, it's even more strange considering they went through the trouble of removing every online achievement from the original, but didn't go all the way with the holofigures. Then Moranium is a resource obtained by setting up probes around the world, and while you're out and about doing other things, after a certain amount of time it's automatically given to you. The problem is that this is the only way of obtaining Moranium, outside of a single moment from the main story. Xenoblade 2 had a similar mechanic, but at the very least, there were things you could do to lower the timer. But in X, there are no skills, side quests, anything you can do to speed up the process. And you can't get Moranium with money, materials, tickets. No matter what point you're at, you have to wait 30 minutes for every batch of Moranium, and when you need a lot of it to refuel skills or upgrade your stuff, you're not really earning it. It's all just a complete waste of time. But then again, spending over 100 hours in a game role-playing as Sephiroth is also probably a waste of time. So, I might not be in a position to speak. I've made a lot of complaints, but I only did so because I really do love this game. And despite some of the new stuff missing the mark for me personally, I'm not gonna forget the rest of the time spent revisiting one of my all-time favorite Wii U titles. Back in the olden days, I really wanted this game when I was a kid, but wasn't old enough to play it. It even came out a day before my birthday, which was quite possibly the biggest bummer of all time. So when I ended up having an entire week off starting the exact day the Switch version was released, it was like the passage of fate destined me to experience Xenoblade X on launch. There used to be a time where even the developers thought this game would never escape the Wii U, and I thought the same. But it's not impossible anymore. It's real. I've played it, reviewed it even. It not only got its second chance on a much more successful system, but the series as a whole is doing better than ever, and I'm glad. Xenoblade Chronicles X is back, and this time, it's here to stay. Stop. Wait, stop the music. Stop the music! Jeez, man. Anyways, don't you think it's weird? Why was Tatsu in the ganglion food supply of all places? Why does everyone always say they want to eat him? And I realize now, there's no other explanation. Tatsu is a ganglion spy. I mean, think about it. He's always covering himself up with food to appear more tasty, says he prefers to be eaten by his friends instead of wild monsters, and even slipped up once and mentioned he tastes like poison. Isn't it obvious? While the rest of the ganglion attack using conventional methods, Tatsu has been deployed as a living sacrifice to destroy humanity from the inside, and he must be dealt with.